everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, Mike. How you doing, buddy? Good to hear from you tonight.
All right, except for that Pacers game, but we're not even going to talk about that tonight.
We're not going to talk about it.
The NCAA. The NCAA.
LeBron is a great basketball player, okay? Despite all the crap we want to, the man can play a game. And he made two clutch plays at the end of the game, and you know, the better player won tonight against the weaker team. Let's move on.
It was goaltending.
Yeah. Let's move on.
All right, so we are going to talk about the NCAA has decided to clean up college basketball. And the way they're going to start that is by bringing in Condoleezza Rice and a commission of college basketball to see what they can do.
A blue chip panel.
Yeah.
A blue chip panel.
It's a blue chip
of
panel.
Wealthy sons of bitches.
Yeah.
A blue chip panel of wealthy sons of bitches.
And the blue chip panel is populated with a dozen appointees picked by NCAA Commissioner Mark Emmert. And you have the rundown on who these guys are. You want to let everybody know what this panel
All right. On this committee was Mary Sue Coleman, President, Association of American Universities. General Martin E. Dempsey, U.S. retired, Chairman of USA Basketball. Jeremy Foley, Athletic Director Emeritus, University of Florida Athletic Association. Jeffrey Hathaway, Vice President, Director of Athletics, Hofstra. Grant Hill, millionaire basketball player. Owner and Vice Chairman of the Atlanta Hawks. Reverend John Jenkins, we got to bring God into this somehow, President of Notre Dame University. Mike Montgomery, retired basketball coach, analyst, Pac-12. David Robinson, another millionaire basketball player. Catherine Rumor, former White House counsel. Gene Simmons, Senior Vice President of Wolf Foundation Endowed Athletics.
He's in KISS too, right? Gene Simmons.
Anything endowed is wealthy. And John Thompson III, who's made all his money off John Thompson, the original one, Board of Directors of the National Basketball Coaches Association. So this is a pretty wealthy, elite panel of people. Not really a good representative of a cross-section of everybody that's involved in college basketball. Once again, it's the elite, wealthy figureheads that are out here making decisions about the 1% or the 36 players who are considered one-and-doners and by their own accords, and we'll get to that, by the 36 players that are really disrupting the entire process, rather than the 4,000 other basketball players that play college basketball who will be affected by this rule much differently than the elite one-and-done players. Okay? So there's your panel, first off. And there becomes the first one, and headed by Condoleezza Rice. She's a member of Augusta, so I'm not going to say anything bad about Condoleezza, because God forbid should I ever get the opportunity to play Augusta, she could definitely probably say, nope, I use my one free get out of jail free card and do not allow him to play Augusta. So I'm going to leave Condoleezza Rice alone on this one. But her qualification credibility in terms of me with college basketball are slim and none.
Yeah. Let's talk about this, though, because the thing that bothered me the most about this is it seems to me like the NCAA is a woe is us, that all these other people are the factor in why this is happening. And the thing that blew my mind was a substantial portion of her comments were directed toward issues under the jurisdiction of the NBA and its Players Association rather than the NCAA. The commission called for the NBA to end its so-called one-and-done rule, citing it as a particularly important factor in the black market of college recruiting. And I call bullshit here because the NBA
I call bullshit with you big time.
Governs the NBA. They have, right now, the NBA has the NCAA as basically being a breeding ground for their players. This way, they don't have to draft somebody out of high school and take a chance on them. They can actually watch them for a year.
What I was going to get to.
And that's a joke.
Okay, first off, the whole thing really in this whole process involves this, and it's in their own language in this report that comes out if you read the entire 53-page report, which I did thoroughly. It talks about basically 60 players that get drafted every year. Because there's 2 rounds in the NBA draft, and that each, other than that, they're saying right now that on average 40% of those players are coming from Europe. So that leaves 36 college basketball players that are really at will to make a contract to play in the NBA. Now, what I took from this was a lot what you said, and I'll go back to about the NCAA being a victim here, but we seem to be wrapping this whole thing around these 36 players because they're the ones that are getting the big shoe cut. And they try and justify it by saying, no, mid-level players too will get it because, you know, like a mid-range player will get, you know, under the table money and things like that, which I don't buy at all. I was probably a mid-range player at Indiana for my entire career there. Started probably 60 to 130 games I played there. It was a 6th or 7th man on the bench. Nobody ever offered me a penny. All right. I mean, if I got a free tank of gas every once in a while, that was a great thing for me. You know, or maybe I went to a restaurant with my dinner and somebody said, hey, don't worry about it, get out of here, and don't pick up the tab. Now probably what will happen is Indiana will probably be thoroughly investigated now because I just said this. But so they're talking about roughly 36 players. This whole thing's hinging over, according to their own documentation here. It's in their own verbiage. But the way this is portrayed after I read it, the first thing that came to my mind, and you and I talked a little bit before this came on, was you said, what's your takeaway? I said, well, I think the NCAA wants to paint themselves as victims here. They think they're getting screwed by the NBA. They're getting screwed by the shoe companies. They're getting screwed by AAU. And their college presidents aren't paying attention to the work that they're trying to lay out there to protect amateur athletics. All right, first off, in my eyes, there's nothing amateur about athletics anymore. Okay? I mean, until you get down to the grade school where kids play not caring about the score of the game, but what's the snack after the game, above that level, amateur athletics pretty well stops. You know, so at that point, but this whole thing smacks of the NCAA saying, we're the victims here. And we've done a poor job of policing ourselves.
Well, and the other thing,
kind of like Mark Zuckerberg sitting there with Facebook the other day in front of Congress. Well, we apologize. We didn't take our due diligence.
Well, they
use the word due diligence in here a lot.
Well, all people that think their lawyers are. But in that speech that Rice gave, the thing that stood out to me was the fact that she said the vast majority of schools play by the rules, but a win-at-all-cost approach by others who have been adequately punished must be changed. I think that's BS. I think this runs a lot deeper to what she says.
Oh, I think it runs, it's about market share. It's not necessarily about the top 36 players in the country. It's about having market share. Nike wants to go in and says that they dominate 36 or 50% of the college basketball market. Adidas says, hey, we only got 22%. Under Armour says they only got 12%. They want market share because market share is what gets them shelf space. Shelf space is what sells their product at Dick's Sporting Goods, at Arena Sporting Goods, or anywhere you go to buy some event, anywhere you buy sporting goods in the country anymore. That shelf space is what gets you that. When you have bigger market share, you command better shelf space. So there's a method to the madness of what the shoe companies are trying to do here in terms of why they're not just focused on these single 36 players. They're focused on the whole process of owning college basketball. But to sit there and let the NCAA portray themselves as victims here, this whole thing, and if you read it, you're going to take that away from it, the way it's worded, that they're getting screwed by this one-and-done thing by the NCAA, by the NBA. All right, now, first off, I'd say, now the NBA is really smart, because what the NBA is doing, they're not going to touch this because right now they're letting college basketball vet the players for them because they don't want to sign some Steve Risley to a $10 million contract because Steve had a good college year and wants to come and thinks he's an NBA star, and they got to honor me because I put all these points on the board. I turn out to be an Adam Morrison and be a total flop in the NBA. And there's a ton of flops that have done that. But now the NBA's got smart and said, you know what, we'll put this one-and-done rule in. We'll make these kids go sit in college one year. We'll scout them up against some of the top talent in the country, not just high school ball, not let them come out. We're not going to offer these big contracts. So we'll weed them out by letting them play 1 year in college ball. Then we'll offer the 36 players the big money. It was interesting to say that on average since 2006, there have been 8 one-and-done players on average per year drafted in the NBA draft. Yet the funny thing was they said those 8 players, the largest percent of them came from 6 different colleges. So it doesn't bode well for all the smaller schools in terms of where these big talented players are going and where the shoe companies are throwing their money to. And that's right out of the verbiage in their own documentation, where she pointed out that on average since 2006, there's been 8 one-and-done players a year being drafted in the NBA, and the bulk of them have all come from 6 specific universities. I couldn't find the name of the 6 universities, but I'm sure if you go into the bibliography, because it's got a 15 number tag to it, you can find out what those 6 universities are. I think we can probably guess: Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas. I don't even think Indiana would fall in there. Not anymore. UCLA probably wouldn't fall in there anymore. But, there's 4 of them right there of these one-and-done players.
Well, and since we're talking one-and-done, real quick, this is the thing that really blew my mind, that the commission recommended that should the NBA not change the rule, that the NCAA would consider a ridiculous backward-looking possibility of freshmen being ineligible to play college basketball, as had been the case
how great is it?
Before 1973. Now, this is my point of this. That is an obvious bluff, and doing so would accomplish the impressive double whammy of punishing both the NCAA, which would sustain a serious dent to its cash cow's relevance, and the athletes themselves, many of whom would then be stuck in a no-play purgatory of the NCAA and the NBA's making. So here, once again, they're trying to demand things from the NBA and threaten the NBA, but either way, I don't think the NBA really cares.
No, I don't think the NBA is going to change their formula. Why would they? Like I said, they use college basketball as a vetting process to weed out the players and not the players. And Adam Morris is a great example of that. What, college basketball player of the year? Was it Gonzaga?
Yeah.
Came out, and he was like a 1 or 2 draft pick, and then he ended up total bust. And you can go on Twitter anywhere and search it, top 20 busts last 20 years in the NBA. You see players that are like, oh my God, yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he was hot. Yeah, it never materialized. Guy never played. The kid out of Indianapolis, Greg Oden. He was a number 1 pick by Portland. I don't think he ever played 30 games for Portland, 40 games for Portland. And they signed him to a big contract. So we just put this one and done clause in. So you got to play, and we're going to vet and see what you're made out of. And of course, with Oden's case, he had such bad knees. It was a dumb move on Portland to even draft him anyway with the number 1 pick. But that's another story there. So the one and done thing totally is to me, in the Constitution of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, to deprive any player who has the talent to go play, right out of high school. Think of that rule. We wouldn't have LeBron, for a year. We wouldn't have Kobe for a year. Wouldn't have Sean Kemp for a year. I mean, how many other kids have come out, right out of high school?
Well, and the thing is,
there's been more failures than successes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But still, they should have the right to pursue that. And even if failures, made a pretty good chunk of money there.
Yeah, they get a big signing bonus on a 3-year contract. Hey, give most people $6, $7, $8, $9 million in the business world. If they're smart, they turn that into a fortune. They don't have to work the rest of their lives. They may not live, on the beach at Malibu in a $50 million house, but they'll have a nice, comfortable living. They'll have income. They'll have security and things like that, which goes back to a part of my pay for play thing in college basketball, which you give the middle range players and everything that opportunity. It's not going to be anywhere near that kind of money, but we've talked about that. And we may touch on it again somewhere down this conversation. But the one and done rationale is insane. It's insane. It's insane for the NCAA to throw out any kind of threat. They would recommend it. They would ban freshmen from playing. No university would stand for that. Not with the importance put on winning. TV wouldn't stand for that. And there's no way that would happen. To even throw that out there discredits this committee right off the get-go to say, yeah, we're going to go back to 1973 and go to freshmen can't play. Why would we punish the players?
Well, because we don't want to punish the institutions or the NCAA, and they're trying to put it off on everybody else. Now, they did come up with a couple things that I did like, and that was allowing the NCAA to certify agents and allow players to consult beginning with them in high school. That way, they can find out kind of where they would go. But the thing that I really liked was the fact that a player can come out early, and if they don't get drafted, they can come back to school, which is what I think should happen anyway, Steve.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, certifying agents, the agents have to be certified by the NBA, by the NBA Players Association, by the NFL Players Association. They get certification through there. Why are we double standarding?
I can tell you. I can tell you.
If you want to work with the NBA, the NCAA, or in football and everybody, say, let's get a standardized accreditation.
Yeah, but
let's say you have to be college and pro to represent a college athlete in here. But who are we to say who you can pick as a lawyer?
Hey,
I mean, who am I to say that if my brother's a good lawyer and he's a family member, I trust him, he's not going to screw me out of my money, and he's going to do the best for me because he cares about me because he's family? Why can't I have him represent me just because he's not accredited by college athletics?
I'll tell you. I mean, even if you're accredited by the NBA, if they accept the NBA accreditation, then they don't get paid by the NCAA, or the NCAA doesn't get paid by the lawyers that want to be certified by the NCAA. That's why.
That's what I'm saying. I know there was money
they
involved.
Want to get paid.
That's where I was going to, because the NCAA will charge to get accredited. You will not get a free accreditation by taking a test from the NCAA. You will go through a class and you will pay a hefty fee to the NCAA to be an accredited NCAA agent. I guarantee you that will happen. Another money-making thing out of the player's pocket into the pockets of the NCAA.
Yeah, and like I said, in the end, the thing I took away the most from this was the fact that her words was, we have a crisis in college basketball that is foremost a problem of failed accountability and lacks responsibility. But when listening to her speech, it sounded to me like she was trying to blame, as you said before, the NBA, the player unions, the AAU, shoe companies. And I mean, there's things that can be done here, but they're not going to bring it up.
No, they're not going to, because they don't. And again, this whole thing smacks of, and again, when you go through this, and I kind of want to run through quickly each of the different segments that they talked about, but once again, though, in the whole process of this, what I took from this also is you're asking the NCAA to police themselves. So once again, you're letting the fox guard the hen house. And now they say they want 5 people put on this committee, need to be added to the executive board that are not members of the NCAA or employed by the NCAA. But will it be an open vote? Who will vote? They want the colleges and presidents to vote? The only fair way to do it is just have an open election on November 5th, vote for president and vote for the 5 players that are going to be men and women. They're going to be on the executive committee of the NCAA. I mean, how else are you going to do it? How am I going to get represented? I mean, nobody called. They called David Robinson. They called Grant Hill. Nobody called me. Nobody picked up the phone and said, Risley, you're a potential candidate. You've been in this since 1981, national champion. You've been down this path. And I'm using me as a metaphor. People don't call and say it should be me. I realize it shouldn't be me. There's a million guys it could be, but it's a methodology that they use of, let's take these 2 prominent millionaires to once again say, no, they shouldn't get paid because I'm filthy rich. I don't need to worry about money. Okay, and then they go into this whole thing about throwing in there about the opportunity for the free education. Granted, I give you that. It is a great opportunity if you want to go get an education. But I'd really like to do an unbiased, hardcore, double-blinded, randomized, placebo-controlled study, say how many kids go to college and play basketball with the intent of getting a degree. Matter of fact, they even say to themselves now that almost 40% of people by their sophomore year now transfer schools before their sophomore year, the end of their sophomore year. And the percentage of people that graduate to transfer is like 30%. That's in their wording too. So they say that. So what's it tell you? Well, I didn't like the curriculum at Indiana, so I'm going to transfer to Purdue because I got a better curriculum. No, I wasn't going to play at Indiana. And I still think I can play in the NBA or play in Europe or coach or stay in basketball in some way. So I'm going to go somewhere where I can get some more notoriety to myself and get myself known, because these players that are coming out now, what I see this more as an opportunity to get an education as much as it's an opportunity to market yourself. All right, when you come out of college in 1981 as a national champion, I had more ability to market myself than the kids that finished that didn't get in the tournament did. Okay, when I went to businesses, national champ, I could market myself easier by playing basketball there. Now, I had a degree, or I have a degree, but it was more of by being a national champion still to this day. It's on my resume. Member of 1981 national championship team. And you know what? Most of the conversation when I talk in an interview or somebody here talks to somebody about my work experience, that always comes up, and it generally ends up being at least the first or second most talked about thing that we talked about. What's it like to play for Bobby Knight? Okay, what was it like, and what does bringing an NCAA championship mean to you? So most of these kids that go there to play basketball. There are the smart ones of whatever race, creed, color you want to be or you are that go there and realize I'm not going to play. This is a great opportunity for me to get an education. But I don't believe, despite what they say here, that's the bulk of the kids that play college basketball every year. I think that's a less than 50% of the group that's there playing. Right? They're getting an education paid for. They're getting free housing. They're getting treated like royalty. They're getting all the help they need to get smarter about their lives down the road. But they're marketing themselves just as well. So that doesn't fly with me either. We have to be student athletes. Most of these kids are basketball players that go to college. And they say so in their own documentation that most of these kids would not be going to college would it not be for basketball. I wrote down on my notes when I was writing, I said, that just tells me you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. You can put a kid in college, but if he doesn't want to get educated, he's not going to get educated. And they go on to say about the thing about not paying players on this one and done still even in that area about, they're afforded perks and privileges that others don't get, like training table, like study table. Well, there's every dorm has a meal plan. Okay. So you get a meal plan just like a student athlete does. Our food may be a little bit of higher quality, but they still get meal plans, tutoring, special tutoring, whatnot. You know what? When I got out of college, I don't think I ever spent time with a career counselor. That may have been by my choice. I don't even know at that point in time what it was. But I didn't get any special counseling on going out and finding a job. I didn't go through a job fair. It was presented to me. I could go to the ones the university offered. I could sign up for job fairs just like other student athletes could do, or other students could do at the university. Hey, there's job fair in Myers 101 in Indiana on Saturday. These companies will be there if you want to go apply, put your resume down, you're welcome to go. But there were no special job fairs for IU players. All right. Now, there are the alumni who are going to say, boy, it'd be nice to have a guy like Risley working for my company for a while. But then when they realize Risley's a dumbass and doesn't know anything we're doing, we can't afford to carry him once he's run out of Bob Knight stores. So that whole philosophy doesn't fly with me either.
All right. Now, the other thing they bring up.
Now, then they get into enforcement. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, they want to start doing level 1, level 2, level 3 violations. That should have been there from day one. To me, it's the same insane mentality of the death penalty. We convict the guy of the death penalty, and 15 years later we kill him if we're lucky. The minute we instituted these punishments, there should have been level 1 immediate suspension. There should be a stiff penalty and fine immediately. And you can't let the universities or the NCAA police it. You can't let that happen. Because, again, it goes back to the old, it's like the fox guarding the hen house. We really, North Carolina draws a hell of a lot of people on the East Coast. Do we really want North Carolina out of the tournament for 5 years? And we got to redo that contract in 3 years. If they know they're going to have to do that, CBS got to do that 2 years without the possibility of North Carolina being in the Final Four. Do we really want that? Oh, no, here's Kentucky. Kentucky's out for 3 years now. Louisville's out for 4 years. Oh, hell, here comes UCLA. We finally figured out Sam Gilbert did cheat at UCLA. Now we got to take them down for 5 years. All of a sudden now, the 6 top schools that are producing the 8 one-and-done players a year, hey, guess what? They're not in a tournament for the next 5 years. CBS is going, your tournament's not worth that much money to me now. You don't have these big schools playing. I mean, I don't really want to see Florida A&M play Wichita State for the national championship. That's not a big market TV thing where I'm going to be able to sell all my advertising. So there should definitely be swift punishment. It should be severe punishment. I like the recommendations that they make, but we'll see if they get enforced.
I don't like
how they're going to be enforced.
I think the recommendation is bullshit. I mean, because when I
why?
look at this, the worst thing they've got here is a 5-year postseason ban,
Your
loss of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is this, and the coach could be banned for a year.
Yeah, no. Yeah, coach ought to suffer the same penalty. If the school's banned for 5 years, you're the coach.
I would do this. I would, if it's an egregious violations where they were cheating, I think the coach should be banned for life. And I think the school should be a 3-year violation, but written into that should be, if they're on a 3-year violation and you didn't do anything wrong as a player, you should be able to immediately transfer wherever you want without being penalized a year.
Definitely that. Yeah, if you're not a player involved in the infraction,
yeah, that's what I mean.
You're free to go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
You're free to go. I can't dispute the punishment for the players and the coaches of universities. I can't. You can't tell me that Rick Pitino didn't know what was going on. I will not buy that. I will not buy that.
And let's face it, the NCAA gave him a 5-game suspension because an assistant coach hired strippers for recruits. If you know anything about Rick Pitino's personal history, hell, Rick Pitino was in there with the recruits while the strippers were there. And Pitino, of course, later was fired, but not because of that. It's because the FBI investigated.
The boat got too top-heavy. They fired him because the boat got too top-heavy.
Yeah, the FBI
the ballast was off balance. Yeah, well, which goes back to the whole thing of all this whole thing premises on what? The FBI and everybody's involvement is what? What is it? They have no issue. If the NCAA and college government wants to cheat on getting players to certain universities, what does the FBI and the CIA or any jurisdiction care? All they care about is there was wire fraud and there was tax evasion. And that's what people need to realize. All the FBI cares about, the IRS and everybody, is, man, you guys are changing hands with big dollar amounts here that are not being reported to the IRS, which means we are not collecting our 40% of this big-time money that's coming out.
Yeah, and then you get...
I mean, you in agreement with that?
Yeah, and then you get the AAU, which they bring up, and I think that's a big one here because, yeah, they do have undue influence, but with the NCAA, if you want to stop that, couldn't you just stop sending your coaches to the events? Send coaches to high school games instead? That would pretty much kill the significance of the AAU basketball.
Yeah, but it goes back to money because then the high school coach has to spend his entire off-season traveling around to Fishers, Indiana, Batesville, Indiana, Vincennes, Indiana, Downey, California, looking at players when they say, I go to Vegas, I see them all there because there's a big AE tournament there. Hey, that saves the university a lot of money.
But if it's a
lot of money.
But if it's a college, and this is for student athletes, it is college basketball, shouldn't that be the way it's done?
In realistic times, I would say yes. I would say in realism, yes. But in practicality, no. Because if you can bring, and again, if I was a coach, I would want to see how Risley performs against Isaiah Thomas. And if I go to a game at Aurora versus Lawrence Central in the semi-state in 1977, am I going to see Risley playing against the best? He got beat that game, but am I going to see him playing against the best talent? Am I going to know that Risley can stack up against Patrick Ewing? But if I go to this tournament in Vegas, Ewing's going to be there, Risley's going to be there, Mark McGuire's going to be there, Clark Kellogg's going to be there. Then I'm going to see how Risley stacks up. Then I'm going to decide. So I'm not a big proponent of that as much as I think that's fine. I'm more of a proponent of, W-2 everybody, 1099 and W-2 everybody. Then you give the IRS free reign. And Condoleezza talks about transparency across the board. Shoe companies need to be more transparent. The NCAA needs to be more transparent. Universities need to be more transparent how they're spending their money. I think that's where I'd start right there. How do you get more transparent? Let the IRS dictate it. Buddy, they'll find your money. They will get your money. You make it more transparent? Just let them handle it. Take it out of our hands. Because the alternative that Condoleezza proposed in her committee was have the NCAA set up a feeder system now. Let them control youth basketball. Let them control high school basketball. Let them do their own version of AAU. Again, you're letting the fox guard the hen house. She's basing all of her decisions and facts on the fact that everybody has integrity and is honest. And that we're all going to abide by the rules if we put the right rules into play. It's not going to happen. It's why gun control would never work in this country. Because guess what, Mike? Criminals are still going to get guns. Okay? And the only person who get punished by gun control are the law-abiding citizens that legitimately want to own guns. That's the only people we're going to hurt. We're not going to hurt the criminals. And the criminals, the elements that are cheating in college basketball right now are going to continue to cheat.
Yeah.
They're just going to find different ways to funnel the money. They're going to do it.
The only way you can really fix it, Steve, is if you did ban them for 5 years, because then the first time in North Carolina gets banned, everybody else has got to clean their stuff up. But as you said, we know how this would end up. It's going to drop the television contract and everything else. The NCAA paid all this lip service. I mean, they put in their people. They put in their committee.
Right.
I mean, Mark Emmerick was on the committee. I mean, how the
hell?
But
he couldn't be part of the executive session. He couldn't be part of the executive session. Like he was probably on by teleconference, or he had somebody runner in there coming out and telling him every text and the entire time. Well, we want to do this one. No, we don't want to do that. No, we don't want to go there. No. That'll cut into my $1.8 million salary.
Yeah, and my other problem is, why do you have David Robinson and Grant Hill? Why not have guys that were backups in there too? Because all you're doing is getting the opinion of players that took advantage of everything. I mean, you could bring in Chuck Franz and Steve Risley. You could bring in anybody, but maybe take the last guy on the bench, take a guy that was a 6th or 7th man, then you can have a star. But you can't have varying opinions if all everything comes from one angle.
It's such a fallacy because Steve Risley is the person who benefited from the way the system is. I went and got my degree. I went out in the workforce and worked 25 years at Pfizer and built a career, okay? I did what the NCAA wants to tell you on paper they want to do. Yet they don't want my input. They want David Robinson, who owns the Admiral Financial Investment Group and the part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, two multimillionaires who are, again, living in la-la land.
That and they're guys that are going to agree with the NCAA no matter what.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, because we profited from the NCAA. We were wealthy. We got wealthy. We succeeded. How about the guys like me who, was a high school American 2 years in a row, high school, who didn't materialize into a superstar in college, never made it to the pros, and yet I took advantage exactly of the exact thing that they want to portray as what the student-athlete experience is all about, according to the NCAA. They don't want those people there because I would tell them, you're stupid, you're wrong for not doing a profit-sharing plan with athletes now based on the amount of money that's coming in. And then they kind of start to address that in this thing, too, about we can't afford to pay players. No, you don't pay them that kind of money. You give them staking money. Then they talked about it will not incentivize people to get their degree if you're paying them when they're there. They'll get used to living on that money. Again, my theory is you don't pay them until they graduate. You dangle a carrot in front of them. You give them an arbitrary amount of money, and again, I've used this $5,000 number, and every year they progress towards a degree. You put it in a money market CD. Upon their 5th year, say, because there are red shirts, 5 years, give them 5 years to get their degree. All right? It is tough to be a student athlete. Upon the completion of their degree, they get up, walk across the stage, get their diploma, turn their tassel. They're handed their diploma and a check from the university or the NCAA for whatever amount was put into their money market CD and say, have at it. Thank you for your helping us raise money for the university, bring awareness to the university, being a great contributor to this university. And here is a small part of our appreciation for being able to sell your jersey, put your picture on a poster, sell it to people, sell programs to people, sell cups with your picture on them, sell jerseys with your name on them, take you to events and charge people to come in and see. Here's a little token. It's not going to make you a millionaire, but it may stake you in buying a house, starting a business, or doing something with a degree that you just got.
Yeah.
And that's a little thanks on top of us for giving the university a little bit more than the average student athlete does. Well,
I can tell you this, from reading reactions to this, the only place that really seems to think that this was a great thing, and you want to go to a website that really supports the NCAA, you go to the NCAA.com, because Andy Katz, I know
bring Mary on board. Mary would be all over this.
Oh, no,
Mary
she
would think this is the greatest report.
I talked to Mary tonight, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I think Mary would think this is in defense of her. Not like Mary. I don't want to get it, but
Mary
she would think that this is. Yeah, she would think that this is a perfect scenario to solve all the problems of college basketball. When it really doesn't address any of the issues or problems. It basically.
I talked to Mary tonight, and she actually didn't think that.
Okay, well, maybe we knock some sense into her when we debated her.
Don't
on
say
the
that.
other
That's
topic.
mean. Quit being a bully.
Being a bully. No. And I would love that. Mary, I almost wish Mary was here right now to see what her reaction to all this would be. If you get her on the phone, get her on the phone. I'd love to hear her input.
I think she's asleep. She got 3 kids, and it's almost 11 o'clock at night. But she said she'd love to come on whenever. Maybe Sunday night we'll see if she wants to come on. If John
bring her on, let's talk to her. Let's get her intake on this and debate it. But then they go into the apparel companies, okay? And they go on about how they're the slime balls of the world who are paying players down into high school. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's an old saying in life, you're paid what you're worth, right?
Yep.
Yeah, do you believe that? I believe that. You're paid what you're worth, all right? You're paid what you're worth. If you can get $10 million a year, that must be what you're worth. That's what you're paid. If you can only get $10,000 a year, that's what you're worth. Okay? And so you're paid what you're worth. So if a kid is that hot in that process, why do we have the right to deny him the opportunity at that given point in his life to not capitalize on his talent and his skills? Why does a certain age have to come into play that he has the right to capitalize just because it's a basketball and not a rifle or not how to tune an engine for a NASCAR car? You're a 16-year-old kid out there tuning engines on Jeff Gordon's race car. He's only 16. Hell, a guy can tune an engine better than anybody we got in the shop. 20 or 50-year-olds, let it hire him. Why is that so different? Because of the vocation that you've chosen. Do we sit there and say, you can't do that? It's wrong. So then the shoe companies, the scumbags of the world, hey, okay, if you really want to clean up the shoe companies, here's what you do. You tell them, if you get caught cheating, you cannot sign a contract with an NCAA institution for 3 years. You cannot, no team in the NCAA can wear your equipment, shoes or uniforms, for 3 years. Now, if you want to cheat. Go ahead. We catch you, you're out for 3 years. We find any money going under the table through any direction of any player that's playing ball in college that got to them before that, if that's the rule they want to have. I don't think that rule should even be in there. But if they want to have that, you say, you're done for 3 years. Come call us in 3 years. You can then go sell your uniforms to schools, sell your shoes to schools. You can now pay coaches again, but you can have no contact with an NCAA member institution for a said period of time. I just threw 3 years out there because it's not 1 or 2. Maybe make it just 1 year. And all contracts existing are null and void immediately. That stops it real quick.
And the NBA and the NBAPA actually issued a statement about what the NCAA is, and they said regarding the NBA's draft eligibility rules, the NBA and the NBAPA will continue to assess them in order to promote the best interest of players and the game.
Right. Yeah, which means we're going to do nothing.
Yeah. Or they might, because you never know. The NCAA might pay them off, because the NCAA will do that, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
All right.
I've talked enough.
I just want to thank David J. from Chicago, who's listening in. He's been messaging me on Spreaker.
Hello, David.
Yep, and David, said he loved the show, so hopefully David will keep listening. Tell all your friends about it, David. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, I think. I think overall, from what I take away from this, the one and done does need to stop, and not because it hurts the NCAA, but it hurts a kid that may be poor and could go make a lot of money right away. And David said hello to you, by the way, Steve. But they need to get rid of that. If you can make the money and you can go play in the NBA, go play in the NBA. I like the idea of letting guys come back to school if they don't get drafted. I don't see where that hurts anything. Kind of like Juwan Morgan's doing right now with IU, where he's going to go in, see where he thinks he's going to go, and right before the draft, he'll make a decision.
Can I address that for just a quick second?
Go ahead.
They kind of talk about the fact in the report that there's a naivety on the players that are being taken advantage of because they go into this and they don't know what their worth is, and too many players come out and think, they talk about the fact that there were like 280-something kids this year. Underclassmen have already applied to be part of the NBA draft. They expect to be 36 players drafted, and there's a naivety there of what you're really worth. Why would you not want professional guidance to talk to that kid? Why would you not want to allow them to interact with an agent and say, hey, I've been doing this a long time. I'm an agent.
Why? My opinion is this. My opinion is they don't want him to have that. Because if a Juwan Morgan decides to go into the draft and he doesn't get drafted, then the next Indiana player that might go, Archie Miller could look over and say, hey, you remember what happened to Juwan Morgan?
No, well, yeah. But no, you should not be allowed to go to the draft, but you should be able to seek counsel. You should. I like the rule they have where you're allowed to go. You can apply to go to an NBA.
Yeah, but Steve, what does it hurt that if a kid's not drafted that he comes back to school?
None, really none. But I'm trying to find fair balance here. I'm trying to say,
to me, that's fair balance.
I'm trying to find a middle. I'm trying to find middle ground here.
Yeah, but
what the NCAA is doing by this report is saying there's no middle ground.
There doesn't need to be a middle ground. There needs to be what's right and what's wrong. And with these kids, a ton of money is being made by these schools, and you said yourself they should be paid something. So why shouldn't they be allowed to see if they can make that money? And if they can't, come back to the school who has been basically making money off of them. I really don't see what's wrong with that because let me know. I'll let you finish first, then I'll go. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm so passionate about this.
Just go ahead.
All right. I think the reason you can't do that is that because there will be there's too much variance there for underhandedness going on about, hey, let the kid go back to college and mature a year. We'll get you next year. We'll look at you next year. But we brought you up here. We vetted you in this NBA evaluation camp. We don't really think you're quite ready, but we think you're going to be ready, but we're going to send you back. I think that tugs on the heartstrings and the dreams and a lot of the business sides of going. I like part of the process where a player can go and apply to the NCAA to participate in an NCAA evaluation camp. And then they can go, but then after they get that evaluation, they have to declare, I think, within 10 days after going to that camp and prior to the draft, whether they're going to go into the draft or not. I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that because there should be enough honest people out there, I'm hoping, in the NBA and the agents who are going to look at them and say, dude, you're not going to make it. Let me tell you right now, go back to college, get your degree, keep developing. Here's the things I've worked on if you want to be a great NBA player. You need foot speed. You need strength. You've got to develop a 17-foot jump shot. All right, you've got to work on your left hand. Take these things back. Go back to college. Show this thing to your coach and have him work on these things. And then come back next year and try again. But you're not here, and you're going to piss away a golden opportunity, which is a college education, for something that's not a realistic dream on your part. Okay? And I think to sit there and expect the NCAA to chuck everything away is unrealistic. I'm not advocating that the NCAA start splitting profits equally among players. I'm saying give them a bone. Make them feel part of the process. And the process has grown hugely more than it did since 1981 when I played. It's immensely greater. And the money is immensely greater. And the money's out there. She kept talking about the financial burden on universities of vetting players and having players and accrediting agents. The university have to pay to all this. My God, they're sitting on $900 million net profit. Okay, that's after they've covered all their expenses, right? $900 million, and they're worried about where the money's coming from. Indiana, I think I read again, is putting $2 million more into their football locker rooms. Okay, and she addresses this in there about universities to where we're reading on Mary about a little bit about how the universities were burying money. You know, they don't show profit because they're going to upgrade the football locker room again. They just built Cook Hall. They're adding something on to Cook Hall now. They're renovating the men's locker room at basketball. Damn, Cook Hall isn't 5 years old, I don't think, and they're renovating it already. You know, and then they're talking about the exorbitant salaries that are paid to college coaches as being a big part of the problem. Again, we go back to what we discussed last time. Most of that money comes from outside sources, not from the university directly. I mean, universities, most state universities have a limit on what they can pay a coach. You looked it up last time. You said, what, $525,000?
Well, that's what it was. That's what it is for Indiana University. They cannot pay Archie Miller more than $550,000. I'm sure,
but yet he's making, what, $3 million, $5 million a year?
$5.5 million, all from
right. And so it's all coming from private money.
Endorsements.
Who cares?
Or television shows or radio shows. I mean, the players. This is the thing: the coaches are going to get paid. They're going to get paid really well. But if a coach wants to take a player out for dinner, you can't do that. And I mean, it's not cheating. I mean, if you got a kid that's a senior, and right before his last game, you want to take all your seniors out to dinner, you can't do that. That's stupid.
And see, and there comes down to this thing. It's just called, what the NCAA needs to learn are these words: do the right thing. Okay, do the right thing. You got a player whose mom is dying of cancer. Yeah. And the player's playing in Bloomington. His mom's dying of cancer. You can't put that kid on a plane and send him home to be with his mother.
Well, you can, but you have to have NCAA approval. And
no,
sometimes they don't approve
his mom might be dead by the time they approve it.
Yeah, I know.
You
that's
put the
kid
on a plane, and you get his ass home to spend every last waking minute with his mother. Now, that's a bleeding heart story right there. I get it.
But it happens.
And it's a gray area, which people will abuse, which is why I say they're naive to think that everybody in this whole game, shoe companies, NBA, AAU, NCAA, university presidents, university athletic directors, coaches, they're all in it to make a buck. All right, they all want to get paid. It's gross the amount of money that this college bet. It's really what it's all about. It's how much money's being made and where it's all going to, and who's paying the biggest penalty for this money being made, and how the NCAA now is an entire victim of this whole process. And that's just, they did themselves a disservice here by putting this out and letting this go. They did not, and they kept talking about how the credibility of the NCAA is tarnished and tainted, and until they do things a different way, that they're not going to. And please, I encourage anybody listening or listen to this on podcast, read the 50. You can pull it up on just Google it. Pull it up and read it. It's a fascinating read. But you'll walk away, and the first thing you'll say is, "Boy, the NCAA thinks they got screwed here."
Yeah.
They really think they got screwed, and they're getting screwed by everybody in the world, and they're just victims, like the players.
All right, Steve.
And I don't know, the players don't even feel like they're as big of victims as the NCAA is making themselves out to be right now.
They're making themselves out to be. They don't feel like victims. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this up because we're close to an hour there. I want to thank everybody
for
listening in.
Thank you.
David J. from Chicago. Just like anybody else, you can come ask questions on Spreaker.com. So if you subscribe to the Grueling Truth Radio Network on Spreaker, you will actually get an email notification letting you know whenever we go live for any of our shows. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night we will have a live NFL draft show that will start at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We will run for the entire first round of the draft, which will be about 4 or 5 hours. Make sure you come check us out. Mel Kiper will not be with us, so you won't listen to somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. You'll have myself, Matt Andrews-Scavage, who's a 49er beat writer, Michael Paulus, who's a New York Jets beat writer, and Matt Minnick, who is a Cincinnati Bengals beat writer. We'll also have some former NFL players call in when their teams are getting ready to pick. So make sure you check us out on thegruelingtruth.net tomorrow night live at 7:45 Eastern. Also on Spreaker.com, and you can go to Spreaker.com, find the Grueling Truth Radio Network, and actually talk to us while we're on air, ask questions, and we'll go through that also. We're working on something that hopefully we'll have ready in the next month. where we can actually take calls in, and you guys can call and tell me and Steve how crazy they are. And Mary, if you're listening, you can call in and scream at Steve right now. But
I'm gonna tell you what. I have some great, never told before Bob Knight stories.
And we'll get to them all.
Great stuff that even ESPN has never even gotten a hold of.
Well, screw ESPN. But check us out on the Grueling Truth Radio Network tomorrow night at 7:45. Go to gruelingtruth.net. If you want to hear a different perspective of the NFL draft, spend the evening with us. You can watch ESPN NFL Network. Turn the volume down. Listen to me, Mike and Matt. See, and it's easy. It's easy to know everybody's name because everybody's named Mike or Matt on the show. Steve would have been on the show, but he refused to change his name. All right, guys, check us out on.
No, I'm actually going to be talking. I'm going to be talking to the lawyers, getting ready for the lawsuits. The NCAA, Condoleezza Rice are going to hit me with.
Oh, so screw Condoleezza Rice. All right, guys.
I don't want to. I'm happily married. I don't want to do that.
Okay, I think she might be a guy anyways. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. Make sure you check us out on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. David J. says, see y'all tomorrow. We will see you tomorrow, David, and hopefully everybody else will come back. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. The draft is tomorrow night. Hit us up at 7:45 p.m. Eastern. For Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.